So it was pulling down a 10 gig profile every time the person logged on. So these were doctors who had to log on. So they had someone in the office come in 45 minutes before the doctor started their shift and logging on the machines.
Wow.
This is kind of the desperation that bad user experience can lead to. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest Liquidware Chats. On this edition, we have Chris Marks from Parallels. Chris, how are you doing?
Really well, James. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, and it's always good to speak to you. So I'm looking forward to this. So Chris, to get straight into it, your title at Parallels is Principal Outbound Product Manager. What on earth is that?
Yes, as you won't be surprised to find out I've been asked this a couple of times now. And if I'm honest, before I had a discussion about this role, I didn't know what one was either. So for your listeners out there, it's not a big surprise. Probably the closest role they have heard of is a field CTO. That's probably as close as you can get. But the biggest difference is an outbound product manager is aligned directly to product, not to sales. So a field CTO is normally like a pre-sales function.
Yeah.
But an outbound product manager is a product function who talks to customers, talks to partners, gets that feedback, and that feeds directly into future product roadmap. So I work inside the product organization.
Okay, yeah. Whereas as you said, like a field CTO is a kind of pre-sales role. That's the key difference. Is you're aligned to the product, and which product is that for yourself?
Yeah, I mean it's a similar role. So obviously both roles will overlap quite heavily in talking to, for example, new prospects, new customers about how okay, this is what you do now, what you're going to do tomorrow. That I would get involved in those kind of conversations, just like a field CTO would get involved for those organizations that have those.
And just for those who were, living under a rock, who are Parallels? What do you guys do?
Okay, so Parallels as a kind of entity focuses on delivering applications to users wherever they need them. So most people's interaction with Parallels has come from the fact we have a product which allows you to run multiple operating systems on a MacBook. So I can run Windows on a Mac or Mac on a Mac or Linux on a Mac and that kind of stuff. And that is a very large part of what Parallels do. I work for what's called the server and cloud business. So the kind of biggest product inside that business is a thing called Parallels RAS, Remote Application Server. And that is like a VDI kind of desktop as a service, delivering desktops and applications to people, as I'm sure probably every single one of your listeners will have come across before. Let's call it VDI for the sake of argument.
Fair enough. So to go a little bit back in time, how did you kind of get started in EUC?
Oh, well, okay, get started. That's an interesting conversation. So back in the day, I'll try not to let this take an hour. Back in the day, I was actually a Lotus Notes trainer.
Oh my God, you were not Chris Marks.
I
God,
was.
I hated that product with a vengeance.
Let's not get into the pros and cons of that. I thought it was amazing. It paid my bills, right? So but the market, as IBM bought Lotus, the market for that dropped at the same time. This is like the 90s, at the same time in the early 90s that Citrix was gaining traction. So I was approached to say, hey, look, Chris, there's not a lot of business coming out of this Lotus Notes stuff. Do you fancy picking up this other thing? And that was Citrix, and that was Metaframe 1.8 back then. So I wasn't really early, but I was early enough to be in the game for a few 20 odd years.
I was Metaframe 3.0. So you were before me.
So what then happened was, being a trainer, I was working a normal kind of day. There was no stress. If things went wrong, you could restart your entire organization at lunchtime. being a
Hmm.
trainer, right? There was none of the pain that real people had. And I spent a lot of time helping other people on the Citrix forums. I then got contacted by a guy. Turns out that guy is Alex Cooper, who runs E2EVC, and the top kind of 10 people on the support forums at that moment in time. He contacted all of them, suggested a meetup, and that became what was then PubForum, is now E2E MVC. And it kind of exploded from there. I gave up life as a trainer. I worked for an organization who were a Citrix Platinum partner at the time, in technical support, and traveled all the way through that organization. I was technical support. I managed the managed services department. I was a solution architect. I became a field CTO there. All of that in end user computing. I then moved over to Nutanix for a while, for about 4 years. I was kind of a specialist EUC guy over there, but was a sales engineer there before I found myself now at Parallels, and I've been there for about 3 years.
Excellent. Very good. You didn't take an hour.
Good.
So, Chris, I wanted to talk about how your view of kind of the state of EUC, and kind of, has there been any kind of major developments you've seen in the last 12 months, and have they actually made an impact on EUC?
Well, I guess there's multiple changes happening at the same time. Uh, some of the changes happening have been made deliberately by vendors changing their business model. Okay, so that's one thing. And then changing your business model is fine for your organization, but sometimes it has impacts on customers and partners negatively. Um, and those impacts on customers and partners negatively mean there's a lot of partners and customers out there looking for alternative solutions that perhaps 5 years ago wouldn't have looked for an alternative solution. Okay. So the market is changing quite significantly, not just for Parallels, but for other players in the game as well. So that's kind of one thing, and that's happening twofold. That's happening to I'm trying to avoid mentioning names, but it's happening to hypervisor vendors as well as kind of VDI and DAS delivery vendors as well. So it's almost like a nexus of forces all happening at the same time, like a perfect storm. We're seeing some great benefit of that because we're acquiring customers in markets that previously we weren't acquiring customers, right? So we're seeing some great benefits of that. Um, Other things that are going on, no one can ignore what Microsoft are doing. Okay, so no one can ignore what's happening with the Windows 365 angle that Microsoft are doing, giving everything to everyone in a really simple to consume package. Now, from a traditional expert in inverted commas point of view, W365 presents a little bit of a quandary because it's now much easier for an organization to consume that stuff. So we're seeing the whole mixed bag of stuff, right? We're seeing customers who've gone all in with W365. Equally, we've got customers who are currently saying they ain't ever going to go there. But most people are kind of somewhere in this kind of middle game. It seems like everything we say today has got the word hybrid in front of it because that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, I was gonna, that was, I kind of was gonna come to that, and since you've brought it up, I'm gonna talk about it now. But we, we had for a couple of years this whole cloud first and everything, all that kind of thing, and we're now seeing kind of, it feels like a pushback in terms, and we're now seeing, oh, hold on, not every workload suits cloud, and there's downsides to that, and that potentially we might need to keep some things on prem. And I think we're definitely seeing a more, as you said, a hybrid approach to how organizations are implementing things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to preface with what I'm about to say with the cloud is great if you use it for the right reasons, which is what you've just said, James, right? It's like use the best tool for the best job, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people did things for the wrong reasons. So a lot of people, for example, negotiated great commercial terms to spend a large lump of their budget in public cloud. without thinking about how they're going to deliver on that kind of budgetary commitment. So a lot of organizations kind of went there at all costs, if you like. Even though they weren't ready to go, their applications weren't architected in the right way. And now they found they were spending, surprise, they're spending too much because everything's the wrong shape for a really efficient cloud deployment model. And then you find companies saying, oh, I'm coming back again. Well, I haven't got a huge amount of sympathy for a company that then says, I'm coming back again, because it kind of indicates you didn't really, was it really planned well enough to go there in the first place? So yes, we do surveys, and we did a survey this year, and it's basically saying, okay, what's your view on cloud? Are you sending more applications there? Are you bringing more applications back? The majority of people who filled in that survey saying they're bringing more applications back again. Is that a long-term play? Probably not, right? That's probably not how long-term where we're going to end up. But what is true is that I think a lot of money and time has been wasted saying this, we're going to be cloud first and we're going to do it in 6 months. I think people with a sensible head looked at it like anything they would look at. There's an advantage of this. How are we as a business going to take advantage of it? That's where the sensible money is, right? Um, so we've seen all sorts of changes happen, not just from the organization I'm in, but I've been conversations I've had with lots of other people, and I'm sure you have too, Jen.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen the same thing, and then that's one of the things that we kind of try and help organizations with, is if they are looking to do those migrations, you can examine it. You can do a side-by-side comparison and compare how things are in terms of performance with Stratusphere. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot. Some of our customers are staying on-prem forever. They're in airlocked, environments, so they're not moving. But others, have a hybrid approach. So yeah, it's very much. But I get what you're saying. I think some people, like, there was the whole lift and shift disaster, like where people just took everything on prem and shifted to cloud, and then didn't realize if you don't turn things off, things go. You waste a lot of money very quickly.
Yeah. So
And so I think now it's a more, and I think you could nearly equate it to what we're seeing with AI. We're kind of in an AI hype cycle. Cloud is mainstream now. So, everyone's kind of aware of the risks and rewards with cloud. Whereas I think with AI, we're not quite, nobody really knows what's going on, to be honest. It's just insane hype. So I think just cloud has reached a maturity stage we don't see with in other trends such as AI at the moment, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of similarity, and you can spot it. Those companies who created a cloud strategy document, that is not where I would have started. You need to maintain an IT strategy and work out where cloud fits. And it's similar with AI. You shouldn't be creating an AI strategy. You should have a business strategy or IT strategy. And inside that strategy, you work out where AI is going to best fit your business, or could fit your business moving forwards if it keeps progressing the way it's going. Creating a technology focused strategy for a business is typically not the best place to start.
No, no, I agree. Like, technology strategy should be an enabler of the business, but the business should have an overall arching business strategy that could be achieved without the technology, essentially. But the technology enables that strategy.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, Windows 10. It's due to go end of support. It's now the 7th of October. On the 14th, and it seems like there's still quite a lot of organizations who have either opted for the extended support, or if you're in the EU, it appears that the EU stepped in and forced Microsoft to give another year. What's your view on this, given they've had a long time to prepare for Windows 10 migrations, and are they really preparing for the future, or is this just people kicking the can further down the road?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at it at kind of face value, it's confusing, right? Hang on, this is not supported anymore. Why the hell have you not moved?
Mm,
So something is happening in those organizations, which means they're not moving. They're not basically sitting there going, you know what, we don't care, right?
yeah,
That's not
exactly.
what most organizations are saying. But what they might be saying is, we've got bigger issues than this. So a lot of organizations have application estates that they need to retain. Many of them have had well-documented hardware issues. If I'm trying to move some physical estate from Windows 10 to Windows 11, that's caused me some problems, because that means I've got to replace, £500,000 worth of laptops, for
Oh,
example.
absolutely. Like, yeah, there is the whole, Windows 11 has a very strict guidelines on what is and is not supported, like the TPM chip and all that settings, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a massive overhaul if you haven't already done those changes or upgraded your laptops, etc. recently.
Yeah. So, and obviously we're in the virtualization game. So in theory, it should be easier to go from a Windows 10 environment to a Windows 11 environment if it's virtualized and if you've got a virtual TPM sitting in there,
Yeah.
then kind of happy days. But it's still a significant move. And customers out there might be faced with, I'm about to move from a perpetual license to a subscription license for an application vendor. And as a result, that application vendor is hitting my budget for an extra £1 million or an
Mm,
extra €1 million or extra $1 million. Insert currency of choice, right? And I literally cannot find the budget to do that migration when I'm faced with a business critical application difference in cost. And that's
mm,
happened quite a lot, because we haven't mentioned it yet, but there's a significant shift to SaaS applications. With that shift to SaaS applications, a customer might be going from what they had as a perpetual license. Now they're paying a monthly subscription, and that's a
mm.
very different looking cost model.
Yeah.
So there were kind of lots of reasons why a customer would not have gone yet. And it isn't just they're sitting on their hands and being lazy, I don't think.
No.
Not in the numbers that we're talking about. I think their budget is being spent on things they're seeing as, up till now, more important.
Mm. And is that why, if you're looking at yourselves in parallels, you're seeing, due to other vendors changing their models and their pricing structures, that you're now seeing more opportunities because budgets are so tight?
Yes. So it's not just about cost, right? Because if it
Absolutely.
was
No,
about
no,
if
but
it was
cost is
about
always a
just
factor.
about cost, people will have picked the lowest cost solution for the
Yeah.
job it does, right? Already. But
Mm,
what it is about is it's the differential between what I paid before and what I'm being offered to pay now. And IT budgets have already been allocated, and someone's just going, hang on, my VDI estate is now the most expensive part of my data center because I've been hit twice from two different angles. Um, I can't afford this. What can I do? What other options have I got? And there are lots of options. That obviously Parallels is one of the options they have. There are
hmm
lots of options out there for them to go and do this stuff. Um, so cost is hitting organizations hard. Also, what's hitting them hard is, at the very top level, is business level uncertainty. Back in the beginning of the year, when the USA are making decisions about what happens to product coming into the US, businesses often are going, well, hang on, let's just see how this plays out. So this year's been a little bit odd, because a lot of companies are sitting there seeing how this whole thing plays out before they make kind of potentially what would be risky decisions about mergers and acquisitions and that kind of stuff.
So, so do you think in general organizations are kind of putting off these really big decisions till at least 2026?
Uh, Business level decisions, yes. I think the
Right.
Windows 10 stuff,
Mm.
perhaps from, I mean, you mentioned kicking down the can earlier on. Maybe a lot of these organizations have said, well, okay, there's the extended security updates. That's
Mm.
always a safety net, perhaps for
Yeah.
the next 12 months. And as you say, in the EU, that seems to have worked, right? Because they have seemed to have negotiated something with Microsoft that allows an organization to get those security updates
Hmm.
included. So maybe that's the right thing to do. But the problem is, next time those same companies will probably do the same thing, expecting at the very last minute, Zorro is going to come charging in.
Well, it's not like we haven't seen this before. We saw this with Windows 7. Like, how many times did they get the extended support? Like, if you look at like government and public sector, like it was numerous times. I know there was multiple organizations in Ireland and government associated stuff that just got the extended support for Windows 7, and and I'm not sure they ever moved to 10 in some cases, which is kind of crazy. But like I've heard all sorts of crazy. I think there was a report about like I think it was some air traffic control in the US, and it was running like XP or something like that. It's just like there's a lot of all all of this legacy technical debt is still out there, and we sometimes I think get a little bit blindsided by all of the cutting edge stuff, but like there is so much legacy stuff there. Like we've got a very long time before we clear any of that.
Yeah, and it's the one thing companies need to accept when they talk to the shiny suited sales guy for the next big thing. If they're telling you that 100% of everything you do can be done in this new way, they're almost certainly not telling you the truth, because that hasn't been the case for 20 years. The new thing gets a lot of traction for sure.
Mm,
You almost never are able to remove the old thing completely. So what you end up with is this kind of increasing complexity as time goes on, because you're still managing some of this old stuff, albeit less of it, while you're taking on board the new stuff. And that's the challenge with the kind of hybrid world that we're kind of in.
that there's a question for you. Do you think EUC has got more complex?
In the back end, so, okay. Obviously, the answer is it depends, right?
Uh,
It's always it
the
depends.
100% consultant's answer, yes, it
Yeah,
depends.
but if you're talking about like let's pick the average company. Let's
Yeah,
plot a bell curve of one set of companies at the top are always cutting edge. One set
yeah.
of companies at the top are never gonna change. They've got green screen everywhere, that kind of stuff. The average company, I would say, yes, from the point of view that they've got multiple delivery models to maintain.
Mm,
They'll have some applications they've had for years, some applications that might be in-house developed and that haven't received much investment. We spoke about investment a little bit a while ago with Windows 10.
mm,
They'll have definitely some cloud development stuff, plus they'll be consuming some software as a service. So trying to get all those ways of application delivery to the end user without making their head explode is actually a little bit tricky, right? Because the amount of change that's going on behind the scenes is significant. Even if you're going to end up with everything delivered as SaaS, or you're going to end up as everything delivered as a DAS-based desktop, you've got to get yourself there application by application. And the people that often bear the brunt of this are the real humans. What the hell application am I using this week? Because it used to be here, now it's over there, and I don't understand what's going on. So at the back end, yes, it's got more complicated. At the front end, I think organizations like us and you appreciate that fact and are doing things to maintain user experience, right?
yeah. No, I definitely are. But like, I we had a webinar last week. It was focused on logons, And I heard some stories, and I was absolutely flabbergasted that one, logons are still such a huge issue in 2025. Like the average logon is above 45 seconds. 20, at least 25% of them are a minute or longer. Um, and then as I was putting out some LinkedIn posts in kind of promotion of the whole webinar, I got two stories about two different organizations that were running logins of 45 minutes.
Wow. I mean,
So one was a mistake that a profile solution was being a profile was basically coming from a head office down to a satellite office. They were using a really low bandwidth connection, and there was a misconfiguration because it was downloading it every time the person logged on. So what there was no caching whatsoever on the local side. So it was pulling down a 10 gig profile every time the person logged on.
Mm.
So it got to the stage where essentially this was a healthcare organization. So these were doctors who had to log on. So they had someone in the office come in for 45 minutes before the doctor started their shift and logging on the machines. Now, obviously, that's an extra task on someone, but that doesn't even start with the compliance and security issues of sharing logons. But this is kind of the desperation that bad user experience can lead to.
Yeah, so it's one example of the human, the non-IT person. They don't give a monkey's about what your security policy is. They need to do their job, right? They got to do their job.
Absolutely, yeah. And
This is one example,
this
right?
was doctors, so you can 100% understand that I need to do my job. I don't care. That's not my problem. That's someone else. Someone else needs to deal with, and that is 100% the right way to think about it. I'm just there's more highlighting that one, like we weren't aware, or we were aware, but it really kind of highlighted that this is still an issue. And it seems to be the same sort of things that we've been dealing with years are still issues. It's logons, it's profiles, it's applications. This,
But from what I see, it's a little bit more nuanced than it used to be.
mm,
Because what it used to be is logons were slow, like everywhere. Someone had
mm,
created some logon scripts back in the day, and we've all been there. Like, anyone
yeah.
over the age of 40 for sure. It's all been there trying to sort out slow logons and group policy loading and all of that stuff. I think in general, the kind of average numbers have come down. I think we've improved
Hmm.
because of all this different technology, application streaming and all this other stuff. Things don't have to come down all at once.
No, you can, yeah,
Profile can be
yeah,
slimmed.
you can do it all on demand. You don't have to pull everything down straight away. So yeah,
Uh,
we definitely have made progress there.
I think what's probably hitting user experience more is inconsistency. So if it's slow every day, like your example, if it's slow every day, you find a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
If it's only slow every 30% of the time and you're not prepared for it, that is what's going to make you really mad because you're not able to formulate a pattern to get around it.
Uh, Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that like some organizations lack is actually visibility into these things. So it's not that they don't know what's going on. It's like they can't get in. If it's sporadic, if you don't have the reporting, um, like with say Stratusphere, you can delve deep into these things because it captures all the metrics. But a lot of organizations, some of them are I've been talking to organizations and hearing like, you know, say they had very basic monitoring or something like that. So it's not across the board that they have all these detailed DEX monitoring solutions. So it just varies on an organizational basis.
Yeah, I think inconsistency hits users harder than it being poor. And that's not and logins is kind of a bit of an outlier really because once you've logged in, that's it. Fine.
Yeah.
So most people are going to log in once a day, let's say,
Yeah.
or maybe twice if they go for lunch, right? And it's automatically logged them out.
Mm.
Um, so the login time is part of the picture, but it's the steady state performance that's really going to hit them hard. Latency, that kind of stuff. That's really where we're going, where we want to try and optimize the kind of ongoing experience.
And just in terms of your own customers, are these kind of the same sort of issues you guys would face with, um, in terms of like Parallels customers? Are they kind of still facing the same kind? Are they? Do you see them facing these inconsistency issues?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say no there, James, because all
Yes,
of
of
our
course.
customers are
Sorry.
having a great
Yes.
experience, right? But I mean,
No, I
obviously,
meant
there's
other
a
components, not necessarily your own, but like something in their environments that would be.
yeah.
Uh,
Look, there's a lot of moving parts. So rather than saying this never happens, we need
mhm,
mechanisms to flag when it is happening, and then maybe give some suggestions of kind of how to
mhm.
fix it. So from a product point of view, we can sit on top of multiple platforms. We can sit on top of AWS and Azure, and we can deliver AVD, and we can sit on top of Nutanix and scale computing and Hyper-V and VMware and all that kind of stuff, right? So it could be any part of that fabric, right?
Mm.
So what we have built in now, it's not gonna go anywhere near the kind of stuff that you guys are doing, right? But what we have built in is a user experience score for all their sessions. So at least people can get early sight. So they have a little green, amber, red kind of indication of, okay, how is this user's session compared to what it's normally like? Um, and that at least gives them a starting point inside the product. Now, obviously, if we want to look at DEX reporting and questionnaires and really speaking to the human, that's when we kind of work together with people such as yourselves in order to kind of gain that full picture. But in the product itself, there are indicators of you look, this is not right. This is not compared to yesterday,
Yeah.
something's not quite right here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you have that initial stage, whereas you then may need to go, if you need to go deeper, you've got solutions such as ours that you can reference.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We're all friends, right? That's why we're having this conversation.
absolutely. Yeah. We've all been doing this too long. So,
Mhm.
to not be at this stage. So, in terms of so you were talking about basically you're very much platform agnostic when it comes to RAS. Essentially, it can run on most things, which obviously gives you kind of that kind of gives customers the choice to where to host it, so they're not taxed by certain hypervisors, changed policies, and that kind of thing. So so that's good, because I think that's one of the things we're seeing as well, as we're not tied to any platform either. It doesn't matter where you're running. We'll just, if it's on Windows, we're fine with that, and we can support Linux as well. So and Mac. So it's not tied to it. So I think users and companies have more choices in terms of kind of the future and where we're going. What's your kind of view on where EUC is heading? Obviously, AI comes into it because we're seeing more and more products within EUC starting to implement AI.
It's a couple of things, right? So it's what are we going to do about the performance requirements if we're going to give AI to everybody? If we're going to give the ability to uh, carry out these actions to everyone in my business. I remember we've been talking about GPUs for years, right? We've been
Yep.
talking about desktop as a service and GPU, and everyone's going to be using GPUs. And it hasn't really happened in the mainstream, mainly because, CPUs have got faster and does what most people need to do most of the time, right?
Well, we now have MPUs as well. So
Yes, yes, for sure. Find some applications that are able to make use of those, James. Is
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, those are limited at this moment in time. Yes,
but
and
this could be that turning point. The
mm,
problem is the amount of power it's going to need to deliver that turning point. Now, some organizations have got enough money, right? They
mm,
can literally throw money at this solution and get the best possible performance. So let's say you're a finance trader and this is going to make, a 0.5% difference to your day. Well, that's actually quantifiable amount of money that
yeah,
makes, right? So in that situation, I think you will have some industry leading kind of segments like that are going to drive this kind of forwards. For the mainstream, I think a business has got to really take this at the speed their own business can travel, right? There are software organizations and particularly AI companies themselves who are developing this stuff really fast. The danger with an organization is betting on a single solution when that
yeah.
solution might not be here in 2 years because this market is changing extremely fast. Um,
Yeah, I do worry about that because you have like essentially what are ChatGPT wrappers a lot of this stuff, and like ChatGPT will just bring out that function, or OpenAI will bring out that function next week, and then that's another company gone, or Microsoft will do something, or XAI will do something, or Anthropic will do something. This is moving really fast, and we're seeing an evolution. So I don't think you can really bet on one company at the moment. And probably the safest bet is Copilot because it's Microsoft. if you're it's already embedded in what you're doing. Now, obviously, there's an extra licensing cost for Copilot, but there are free elements that there's the extra bit, and then there's the carrot on the stick, the free bit that's already there for everyone. So, yeah, I think you're right. But to start using Copilot and agents, and everyone's got them, like, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the kind of if everyone how we run this stuff. Does it run on multi-user sessions, and what's going to be the impact? Like, are we talking about going from a density of 20 to like 5 or something, and then you scale it out?
Well,
It's
that's my point. I don't, even the hyperscalers are not ready for everyone
mm,
to switch that stuff on now. Like it would melt. It would melt. It would melt the data center.
melt the planet, Chris.
Okay. So I think there's a lot of work to do. So I think we're in these curves that Gartner come up with the trough of disillusionment and all this kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
The hype cycle. That's where I'm going with that.
Yes.
So AI is definitely going to make big inroads, and it already is in a number of industries, right? It's already mainstream in a lot of industries. Okay. Uh, for a normal human who wouldn't otherwise have used AI, so let's ignore application developers and kind of people working in marketing and need to produce copy really quickly and that kind of stuff. Kind of average normal users who perhaps like, well, I don't need it. They will be using AI. They just perhaps it will be augmented into what they do. Just like if we do a Google search today, the top result is AI. Most people
Yep.
don't really even know. They're just
Yep.
clicking on the result that comes back.
Hmm.
Um, how will that change? Well, it will certainly change, for example, Google AdWords, given what I've just said, because now the top result is not what I've paid for. The top result is being generated by AI, for example. So things are going to change drastically over time, but they're not going to change drastically for everyone anytime soon. It's got to be incremental. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to deliver it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with that, and what I've seen as well is when it comes to implementation, obviously there's a fear factor that people are going to be replaced, and we've actually seen that already backfire with certain with I think it was like Klarna did it, and they actually ended up because nobody actually wanted to talk to an AI agent, they wanted to talk to a real person, so they had to rehire a lot of people. So yeah, and the other thing I've seen is like if you think about implementing AI at an organizational level and you're looking at user adoption, one of the key things is around if you can take that most boring, monotonous task and automate it, that immediately user adoption skyrockets when you do that kind of thing. So it shouldn't be the really shiny, oh yeah, let's do this. No, pick the most boring, tedious thing that everyone hates doing. And if you can get AI to do that instead, then that's going to make a lot more progress with organizations.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to end up. But that is that the end user is, in inverted commas, not using AI. The end user is just saving time. They neither care nor know why they can now do this thing much faster than they could do it before. What's happening in the background is they're saying, hey, I want to do this and I need to book this, or I need to claim my expenses, or I need to book a flight for this and also book a hotel in the same city, for
Yeah.
example. Wow, this is great compared to how it used to be. It's not AI
They don't care about
from
the
their
plumbing.
point of view. It's
Yeah.
just better. It's just better.
Yeah.
And that's how most normal people are probably going to end
Well,
up.
yeah, no, there is a whole discussion around how AI will be commoditized at some point, and it's just there. Like I think someone compared it to like electricity. It just is. Like you don't, we don't distinguish. It's just part of things essentially, and I think that's where we're going to end up. But obviously, like we're talking about at EUC level at the moment, like I where I first see it kind of really making inroads is like one of the things, well, a company like ourselves do is we gather a hell of a lot of data. So that's definitely something we're looking at in terms of how we can analyze that data, because there is so much, particularly with Stratusphere. It's off the charts how much data that thing captures. So there is, I think that kind of data and data analytics is where we'll see a lot of the early use cases in EUC. I don't think we're ready for, here's an AI agent, go manage that server. Oh, actually, yeah, the most efficient way to manage this server, I'll just kick everyone off it. So,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't have to educate you about prompt engineering there, James.
no.
There are ways. There are ways to
There are
mitigate.
guardrails when you start building
Yeah.
AI agents.
Yeah.
I was being facetious, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was
Well, I
making
mean,
a point.
in the short term, if we're talking about agents that are doing things on behalf of people, it's likely that those agents doing things on behalf of people need to be inside an operating system or in order to do that. So my assumption, in fact, I'm pretty confident we're gonna see certainly a segment of VDI grow to service the automation side of things. So you've got real humans connecting, and then when
Mm.
that real human goes away, something is still using an operating system in order to do that workflow. And that also could be a virtual desktop. Now,
And Brian Madden has been saying this for quite a while,
yeah, yeah.
and
Now,
he is not backing down on this.
well, I think he might have a point, but how long that lasts, because that's not a very cheap, cost-effective way for something that isn't a human to
Yeah,
do something. I think that's a transitionary phase, if I'm honest with you. So that will transition until we've worked out the best way to do it without literally mimicking a human, because applications today are written for humans. Tomorrow, there might be one interface that's written for humans, a different interface completely, which is built for interfacing with AI agents, right?
yeah, because essentially you're going to have two AI agents talking to each other. So why would they have an interface that we built? That makes zero sense. So yeah, I get your point. I kind of agree. That's kind of where we're going with AI in EUC, and but it is exciting as always in EUC. There's always something new. Um,
But that's
it's
just it, isn't it? We've talked about so many different things, and there's
mm,
question marks over all of the things we've just talked about, right? So nothing in 5 years' time, everything we have just said may be wrong, right? And I'm perfectly willing to accept that in 5 years' time, we'll look back and go, oh, Chris was talking total rubbish there, because what's actually happened is this. And that's why it's such an interesting industry to be in, right? Because the change is happening, and both you guys at Liquidware and us are built for change, right? That's the whole point. The products are built to say, look, today you're on this solution, but tomorrow you might be delivering things in a completely different way.
Yeah.
But we can deal with that, right?
Yeah.
We can move those workloads to a different place. That's absolutely fine, and that's kind of built in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good synergy between our solutions. Is because we can meet customers wherever they are, whatever platform they're on, and that's one of the ways we both help customers. And I think that's a pretty good place to end. So, Chris, thank you so much for being on Liquidware Chats.
It's been awesome,
We will
James. Thanks very
see
much.
everyone on the next episode.